I do think it's time for us to get rolling. What I don't want you to do is I don't want you to feel odd about eating. This is a lunch and learn. So we're going to learn and eat. That's a great thing to do. I would love to be able to speak to you and eat, but I'm pretty sure that's why nobody's sitting here, because they would have food on them probably or something of that nature. So I'm really glad I'm not doing that. But I am going to eat afterwards, so I'm really excited about, you had me at brownie. I think there's a brownie in there, so I'm pumped. So please don't feel awkward at all. Please eat. One of the things we want to do as we talk through this, you may have already came with an expectation of something. If we start talking about the things that we are going to talk about cybersecurity, and it's an expectation that isn't met, what I'd like for you to do is just write that down, and then at the end, let's talk about that. Okay? Maybe it's a question I can talk about it with the entire group, or maybe it's something that we can get together kind of off to the side, something that maybe doesn't include everyone. But so I know probably some of you thought, okay, cybersecurity lunch and learn, don't exactly know what that means. Maybe it is something good that we need to talk about. I've heard those words, but maybe you have an expectation that we don't meet today. And I just want to start out by saying, write that expectation down if that's something that you have, and then we'll talk about that later. In front of you, you have a City of Summersville cup. You got a pencil, man. You got a bookmark about the things we're going to talk about today. And inside that cup is my card. So if you have any questions about today, something else happens, you need to contact me. My contact information is on that card. It's a great way to do that. All right. So cybersecurity. Well, first of all, let's welcome you to the Cybersecurity Lunch and Learn. It's hosted by the Summersville Area Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank Seneca Health Services for providing our awesome venue. It's a great room, by the way. This is something that the public can use. They just got to go through Seneca Health and kind of talk through that. So great place to have something for sure, especially like Lunch and Learns. Love it. So thank you for that amazing venue. And also for your lunch, dinner time. That is Miss Mandy Gerwig. So thank you to Dinner Time for providing our lunch today. Is it good? Oh, awesome. Okay, good. How's the festive noodles? She was pumped about that. So, all right. It's like little fall leaves or something in there. That's pretty cool. So thank you for this fantastic spread. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jason Eades, and I am the Information Technology Manager for the City of Summersville. I also serve on the Chamber as a board member, and currently right now I am the President of the Chamber of Commerce. So lots of other things that I do on the side. We are gearing up for volleyball. State volleyball tournament is coming up in 2 weeks, so I'm really excited for that. We got sectionals next week. So that's something else I do on the side, just to give you a little background of who I am and what I do. I do all those things. It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to be in all that stuff, and I bet each of you do different things. So today we're going to talk about cybersecurity, what that means, and then what role you guys can play in that. I know sometimes when we think about cybersecurity, we'll talk all about this in terms, and there's going to be some acronyms, and sometimes that sounds all confusing, but I promise we'll go slow. I promise we'll go through them. And then as you think about them, you're going to find out that a lot of us need to continue to focus on cybersecurity. October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. If you didn't know that, I think Breast Cancer Awareness Month is also in October. Is there anything else in October? I feel like every month has 4 or 5 things that it's known for. But they started this October Cybersecurity Awareness Month, I think back in 2004. So it's been going, it's been catching some traction. It's not necessarily as big as we'd like for it to be, but it's going to continue to be, hopefully it gets bigger and bigger. Launched in 2004, it is co-managed by 2 different companies. Those companies are the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, known as CISA. Okay, I know that's a mouthful of a name, but basically that's a company that's really focused on cybersecurity. Great company to get some resources from, and also the National Cybersecurity Alliance, NCA. So they do it both with governments and private entities. Okay, and basically what they want to do is just raise that cybersecurity awareness. I think that's the biggest thing. As I look around the room, I want to do this real quick. So we have some who are business owners, some who are in IT, some deal with other things. Some of you are dealing with public relations. Some of you deal with media. Some of you deal with retired folks. Okay, we've got a large variety of people. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk pretty much in the middle, And then if there's something that we talk about, you're like, I have no idea what that means, hey, just raise your hand and we'll make sure that you understand that before we go any further. All right. The other thing they want to do is they just want to make sure that we have resources to talk about cybersecurity. Okay, so like I said, October. Theme this year is Secure Our World. So if you've seen that, hopefully a couple places online, maybe you've seen that logo. Some of the social media and things have been out there, so it's been really cool. So the overall campaign, here's the things we're going to do, okay? First of all, our goal today with cybersecurity awareness and our goal today with our Lunch and Learn is we want to be able to walk away from here taking actionable steps to stay safe online. All of us use the internet for several different things, right? We use it for pleasure. We use it for shopping. Heaven forbid, none of y'all do that, right? And then we also use it for work. So there's several ways we use online deals, and we just want to make sure that we have actionable steps that we can stay safe. And then what we want to do with that tone is we want to stay positive, we want to stay approachable, we want to stay simple, and we want to go back to the basics. Have you ever heard two techies talk? You ever had two technical people and they get in a conversation and they start talking? Does it sound like a foreign language? It does, doesn't it? Okay. Some of you are techies in here, I know that. Some of you I can talk probably tech with. Most of the time I am not around techies. So most of my job when I'm helping with City of Summersville employees, I'm usually not talking with a fellow IT professional. Usually I'm dealing with people who are what? Maybe not so great on technology, okay? So a lot of those terms, when you hear two techies talk, man, it sounds like a foreign language. Well, today what I don't want us to do is I don't want us to have those conversations. Let's make sure we keep it down to a level where we all understand what's going on, okay? And we're not using terms that are crazy. So we're going to define some terms. We're going to walk through some of them and obviously make it sound something that we can take away from here. So the first word I want to define is cybersecurity. What in the world is it? It sounds like something out of a Terminator movie, doesn't it? Skynet. Somebody told me the other day, if y'all have ever watched Terminator, and they have Skynet that's going to take over the world. It's robots and AI. You've probably heard artificial intelligence in the news lately, and it continues to gain all kinds of traction. But they told me the other day, they're like, Skynet's real, it's coming. I don't know if Skynet's real, but here's what I do know. Cybersecurity is needed. Technology is not going away, okay? Technology is here to stay, and it's going to change. In fact, it's changed so much just in the last few years, and it's going to continue to change in the next few years, okay? So, as we talk through this, let's define it. Cybersecurity, it is the protection of computer systems and networks from attacks by malicious actors that may result in unauthorized information disclosure, theft of or damage of hardware, software, and data. And wherever there is technology, there needs to be cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is just a protection of that, okay? It is not, here's some things that it may not be, okay? Antivirus that is on your laptop, your computer, or whatever the case may be, yeah, that's a part of cybersecurity, but that's not necessarily what we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about ways that we deal with that protection of your online things, okay? The way you deal with online stuff. I'll give you an example of this. When you go into the grocery store, let's say you go to Food Line, you're going to go buy you some apples, okay? And you go grab your bag of apples. When you walk up to the cash register, you do not pull out your wallet, get out your credit card, okay, and glue it to your forehead. Why would you not do that? Well, we don't want people to have that credit card number. Is that right? That's true. Now, we'll take that credit card out of our wallet and we'll swipe it through the little cash register as we walk through, sure, okay? But we don't want that credit card just going out to everyone. Well, that's the physical world. You know, we don't want that credit card posted on our forehead, that number. Well, online, it's the same, okay? There are things that we can do to not post those numbers online. And I'd almost to say this, almost be a step out there and say a lot of us are probably using practices online that's putting that number out there just like you putting your card on your forehead and walking around a grocery store. So don't mean to scare you. That's not a tone that I want to be about. But what I want to be about is just so that we understand what cybersecurity is and why is it so important. Well, using some of those best practices, man, that is so important because it protects that personal financial, and sensitive information. All three of those things. And we all have them. And you go, well, I don't know that I have all of that stuff that's online. Well, if you have just one account online, you have put all of those things there. And how we protect that, man, is so important, okay? Both for government and private entities, we got to develop cybersecurity plans. So us as IT professionals, these are things we lay awake at night thinking about. And those plans can be tailored. So the plan that I have for the city of Summersville isn't necessarily the plan that I would go with a small business owner or some small business that maybe only has 2 or 3 employees. And maybe that plan is different than the plan that I would want at my house. So those plans or those cybersecurity plans can be tailored to each of those different groups. And that's where we got to rely on some of those IT guys, okay? Especially those IT professionals and ladies too that are in that. All right, let's talk a little bit about some feelings towards cybersecurity. So this comes from the annual Cybersecurity on Attitudes and Behaviors Report of 2022, okay? Some of this is pretty fascinating. So 78% of people consider staying secure online as a priority. That's a pretty high number. I would have never guessed it to be that high. I'd almost say this too. You are here at this Lunch and Learn because you probably think cybersecurity is a priority. I would think you wouldn't be here if you thought otherwise, okay? So that's a pretty high number. So people think that it's a priority. That's good, okay? 34% noted that they feel overwhelmed by information, and as a result, they just don't do anything, okay? Maybe they get offline, or maybe they just don't feel like going through with any of this cybersecurity things. 46% of them felt very frustrated when trying to stay secure online because they maybe don't know how. 39% of them say trying to keep safe felt that information on how to stay secure online extremely confusing. Anybody in here Googled cybersecurity? Tried to find a plan? If you do, you're going to find a whole lot of them, okay? Internet's full of, well, I should say it this way. The internet's full of anything you want to search for, right? But when we start getting into those plans, sometimes that can be extremely confusing, okay? So be careful what plan you do follow, because you don't think you want to follow a large corporation cybersecurity plan if you are a small business. Some of our online behaviors, okay? 33% of individuals, this comes from the same report in 2022, 33% of individuals create unique passwords for all of their accounts. 33% of them, right? Unique passwords. We're going to talk all about those passwords, okay? Only 18% of those, okay, download a password manager, right? We'll get to all those. 43% of those respondents, okay, same people, have never heard of multi-factor authentication. That's probably another word maybe you've heard, and if you're a part of a business, if you've been a part of the things that I deal with, MFA is a big deal, okay? We're going to talk about why that's such a big deal, multi-factor authentication. Out of those 43, 57% of those participants have heard about it. Drop on down there, 92% of respondents took action after a security training like this. That's the numbers we want to see, okay? I want you to leave today with some actionable steps that you can start to make some changes. Because we're all in this together, man. It's such a different thing. So anyway, some of those things are just outstanding, and that's just those behaviors, and some of that maybe represents what we do here, but again, some of that's across the board. So there's 4 easy ways for us to stay safe online, and this is exactly what we're going to talk about today. It's on that little bookmark that's in your cup in front of you. These are things that are easy to remember. Small things that we can do, but these are large steps, okay? And I think it might surprise you on some of this, all right? Number 1, using strong passwords and a password manager, okay? I'll ask some questions here in a minute, so keep some of those thoughts together. Number 2, we can turn on multi-factor authentication. Number 3, we're going to recognize and report phishing attacks. What's phishing? We'll get there, I promise, okay? We'll get to phishing attacks. Those are emails. And then the 4th thing we want to do is update software. All right. So buckle up, here we go. First thing we can do, okay, is use strong passwords. How many, oh man, I'm probably going to cringe to ask this question. I'm not going to ask it, I'm just going to go with it, okay? Strong passwords need to be strong. Why don't we make strong passwords? Can't remember them. Oh man, how many passwords do you have in your head right now? 3. Anybody got more than 3? More than 3, okay. All right. If you were to take all of your accounts that are online right now and you were to say, all right, these are how many accounts I have, what number would it be? More than 3. More than 20? I bet it is, isn't it? I bet it's closer to 50 or more, okay? You go, well, wait a minute, what could those be? Well, all right, do you stream anything? Okay, you got an account with that, right? I could go into lots of accounts, right? Banking accounts, email accounts, several things. Oh, nobody gets on Amazon, kid you not. All right. So strong passwords, when we start talking about those, here's what they need to be. Now, they take this thing up a step, they take it up a notch, okay? They say at least 16 characters long. Now, characters are just that. They're individual characters, okay? And you say, well, man, if it's 16 characters, I can't remember that, okay? Back when we first started in IT, if somebody had a 6-character password, they were doing good, okay? Well, now that's changing, all right? Too many people now are spending time trying to hack these passwords, and a 6-character password is a whole lot easier to hack than a 16-character password. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. Second thing about creating strong passwords is a unique password. Never reuse passwords. In your head, raise your hand. Now this is not physical. Don't do it. Don't do it physically. In your head, raise your hand if you use the same password for all your accounts. Okay, I saw some hands raised. Be careful reusing passwords. Here's the deal. They hack one password. How many accounts could they get into? Yeah, however many you use that password, okay? How many got like 3 floating around and you use those 3? I don't know which one I use for this account, but give me 3 tries and I'll figure it out, right? Yeah, yep, okay, all right. Unique passwords. And then another part of being strong passwords is complex, okay? What does complex mean? Well, here's what that means. That means using an uppercase and a lowercase letter. That means using a number. A special character, wait a minute, what's a special character? That's where you hold shift down and you hit those buttons on the numbers, okay? That could be a star, that could be parentheses, $, exclamation point. What do you think the most used special character is? At, maybe at or exclamation point, probably, okay? And then some passwords will allow you to use spaces. Spaces are difficult. But I will say this, be careful with spaces. Not everywhere is going to allow you to use a space in a password, okay? Some things don't want you to use those spaces. Now, let's go back up to the top, long. Well, here's what I would suggest. I would suggest 8 to 10, okay? Because I think 16 sometimes can be too long, right? Sometimes 16 can be a lot longer than it needs to be. If you really want a strong password, 16 is fantastic. But I would say, you know what, if you hit one that's 8 or 10, that's probably good. We are now getting into a world now where about everything I'm signing up for is asking for 10, okay? So maybe even 10 is what I would start with. Well, all right. The first thing you said, we'll come back to remembering. Let's talk about some statistics of passwords, okay? 30% of internet users have experienced a data breach due to weak passwords. They've used a password that in a data breach, those threat actors have used, okay? Now, usernames change, but sometimes that password don't. Again, raise your hand in your head if you've ever used the word password as a password. I saw some hands raised. Okay, all right, be careful, okay? 2/3 of Americans use the same password across multiple accounts. We just talked about that. All right, we'll keep going. All right, the most commonly used password, 1 through 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, don't tell me you've used that, please. All right, 59% of U.S. adults use their birthdays. Do I got any birthday people in here? Yep. Or kids' birthdays? Oh, okay. All things that are public, right? I mean, think through that. That's not a private thing, okay? In fact, I'll go so far as to this. You filled out a social media profile and you put your birth date in that social media profile. Well, guess what? They have that information. Be careful using your birthday, okay? 13% of Americans use the same password for every account. I really hope you don't. That came from Google. This is just something for us to laugh at. If your password is on this list, do not raise your hand, okay? But there's some of those most commonly used passwords, okay? 1 through 6, 1 through 9, you get the picture. QWERTY keyboards, you ever heard of that phrase? Yep, that's just Q through Y. All right, you got all that, okay? There's our beloved password again, okay? Be careful using those. Use them with symbols. Use them in combination with other things. Okay, complex passwords, man, is a big deal. Okay, password. About 10 years ago, there was a big push that we were going to become a passwordless society, and I remember kind of reading some articles about that, thinking through that. You know, it was all going to move to biometrics and face recognition and eye scans or iris scans, and all that stuff was going to be happening. Well, that was 10 years ago. We're now 10 years past that. We do not have all those things in place. Yes, there are some biometrics that we use. There are some facial recognitions. If you have an iPhone, they use some facial stuff you can put in. Samsung, I think, uses some biometrics, fingerprint. But we just don't have all of that in place. Passwords are here to stay, and the stronger and unique we make those passwords, the better, okay? They are coming. So when I said what's wrong with keeping a strong password, almost all of you said, I can't remember them. Enter a password manager. A password manager is just a piece of software that allows you to input, okay, a username and a password for a certain site. Amazon, okay? Okay, I want to make my Amazon account secure. I don't want somebody getting on there and buying 14 shirts from China and shipping them across the world, okay? Well, if you want to do that, a password manager, here's what they do. It stores your passwords. It alerts you of duplicate passwords. It can generate passwords. That's a good one, okay? You want to get a random password, you generate it, okay? Generate a strong new password. And then sometimes, if you have the right type of password manager that's on your computer, it'll automatically fill those things in. So here's how this works. You would need one username and one password to get into your password manager that has all of your usernames and passwords. You go, wait a minute, that makes me nervous. It does me a little, I'm not going to lie to you, okay? But a good reputable password manager uses encryption that even they can't even see those username and passwords. So sometimes that's a good thing, okay? Sometimes it's not. You're probably waiting for me to give you like 14 password managers that you could use. I'm not going to give you any, okay? But what I want you to do is if that's something you want to follow through with, okay, research the company. Okay? Definitely don't go one which you've never heard before, but find out and go through that. While we're talking about Password Manager, okay, I do see a lot of Apple users in the room, okay, so I'm going to pick on Apple a little bit. I use Apple, and right or wrong, I think either way you go, I think you can use both out of both, and both of them are unique, whether it's Apple or Android users, whatever the case may be. But in Apple, they have this fantastic little app called Notes. Anybody put your passwords in Notes? Anybody do that? Okay. When I first started thinking about this, I thought, you know what? I don't want to put my passwords in Notes. That's a terrible idea. Okay. But the more I thought through it, okay, again, they got to have your Apple ID. They got to have a password to get to your Notes. By the way, it's encrypted if you didn't know that already. So for them to get to that Notes, man, it becomes more difficult. And Apple uses MFA. Same things we're talking about, okay? Now, I can't really speak for the Android part. Don't use that very often, but I know they do some similar things. But for Apple, making a note of all of your username and passwords, not a bad idea, okay? So maybe start there. Maybe don't start with a password manager you don't know nothing about. Maybe start with those notes, okay? And then see where that goes. I also would suggest you not calling the note passwords. again, level of security. Maybe create a code name or something of that nature where it's labeled with that and start with that. Would also encourage you, because I've been down this road several times, if hopefully this never happens. Again, I want our tone to be positive, but I'm going to step out of that for just a second. But if something does happen to you and no one has your Apple ID and or password, it's pretty difficult to get into, not going to lie to you. So I would encourage you, if you have a significant other, they probably need to know that, all right? Because that way you can get to those things. And if you keep a note that has all that information, well then guess what? They're able to get all those things, okay? Maybe that can be a part of your cybersecurity plan that you have for your home. All right, so password manager, okay? All right, so strong passwords, that's first way that we can stay safe online. Number 2, we can turn on multi-factor authentication. What in the world is that, okay? MFA for short. It is an IT department's nightmare. MFA, right? I struggle with MFA. I struggle to turn it on, okay? It's always this, like I didn't get the text, or now I got to have that person's whatever to be able to get into that person's account. So for an IT standpoint, it's really difficult to implement. However, if we have those things turned on, man, it becomes extremely difficult for a threat actor to get into your account, okay? So multi-factor authentication, it's really simple. It can be several of these or a couple of these. It can be a code that's sent to your phone or email. If you're an Apple user, you already do this. When you log in, doesn't Apple say, hey, do you recognize this device? Yes or no? Yep, I allow it. Yep, then it gives you a code. Kind of does a couple different multi-factor authentications, okay? The second way it can happen is through an authenticator app. Microsoft is huge on this. Microsoft continues to push me to this authenticator app. So Office 365, my account, it wants to say go to this app and get authenticated, okay? Again, something else I got to put in there, but I understand why. The third thing is a security key. Bank people. Do I got any bank guys in here? You ever had a bank account, you carry around that little dongle that has numbers on it? You got to put that number in. That potentially is well, not potentially, it is. It is a security key, okay? Again, another great way of authenticating, okay? And then some of the things we talked about a little bit ago, biometrics, whether it's a fingerprint or it's facial recognition. So it's another way of authenticating. So password is number 1, and then the rest of that could be whatever this multi-factor authentication. Where should we use MFA? Well, we are about to talk about just about every account that you guys have already brought up, all right? The first place you need to turn it on is email. I went to a cybersecurity conference 2 years ago, and I'm in there, we're talking about MFA, we're talking about turning it on, and you know, there's all these things with IT guys, whatever. I'm driving home, okay? I'm in Morgantown, and I'm going through Morgantown. What am I thinking of? The conference. Conference was in Baltimore, so I'm coming back down to West Virginia. I'm in Morgantown, I get a call. Jason, I just got 512 emails sent from your account in like 13 seconds. Yeah, we got a problem. So I pull over to my little rest stop there in Morgantown. I got my little computer out, my little hotspot, you know, so I kind of nerd out a minute. And I'm trying to get in there, and sure enough, okay, I had threat actors compromise my account. And it all came back to, my password's super strong, but you know what it was? I didn't have MFA turned on. If I'd have just had MFA turned on, it would have stopped all that, okay? So what they did is they didn't steal a password, they actually stole the session. And again, I don't want to get too into the weeds with this, but there's sessions that you have with your email and whatever client that you have, and they were able to steal the session. So they didn't have the password, but they got the session. If I'd have had MFA turned on, they wouldn't have been able to do that. So MFA is very important for your email, okay? The second thing we need to turn it on is those accounts with financial information. Yep, Amazon, okay? It's where Amazon turns out. Any banking accounts, anything with that. PayPal, eBay, nobody does those things, right? What's the phrase for eBay, Fleabay? Well, I still use eBay occasionally. There's certain things I like. Mower parts. I love getting mower parts on eBay. They're super cheap, okay? Anyway, there you go. There's some information. But on your email or on that eBay, okay, hey, put on MFA. Other accounts with that personal information. We were talking about social media. Any media you have, any social media, whether that be, and I don't even want to name them because I don't even know them, all right? They're so confusing. Twitter is now X, I think. Is that right? Some of you guys who are users. I don't know because I know I have Facebook, and I only have that just so that I can keep up with some of our businesses and companies. Yeah, it's large, isn't it? So all of those accounts turning on MFA, multi-factor authentication. All right, so we got strong passwords, we got MFA. The third thing we need to do to stay safe online is recognize and report phishing. Now, Jason, I came to cybersecurity, not come to a fly fishing training. Well, it's a little bit different, but it's with the same idea, okay? Phishing is just that. It is emails phishing for you to take the bait. Has anyone clicked on a phishing email? All right. I heard some stories here as we were talking right before the event, and they were like, oh yeah, in the two businesses that I take care of the City of Summersville primary, and then kind of secondary with partnership with Nicholas Community Action Partnership. So I got about 100 people, 100 users that are floating around and I'm trying to deal with. And out of those 100 users, I have had people buy gift cards and deliver them. I've had people at the store, okay, actually getting ready to transfer money. What else have I had? I've had people getting ready to share bank account information through phishing attempts. So I've had some pretty big deals there, and that's all been in the last 3 years, okay? Phishing's a big one. It's probably the biggest thing that they do, that email, okay? And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get you to click on something. So for us, we all have email. We all have junk email, don't we? Probably too much junk, okay? And I encourage you to go through and unsubscribe to those things that you don't use now. Just make sure it's the legitimate email, because see, they'll try to trick you even with phishing email, won't they? Hey, unsubscribe to this. Why didn't I subscribe to that? Well, don't click unsubscribe if you don't know what that is. Some things we're going to talk about. So here's some red flags that we have about phishing email. Number one, that tone is urgent or makes you feel scared. You ever got an email that says, hey, click here, your account's going to be closed? Well, that's probably a good sign, okay, that's a phishing email. Bad spellings, bad grammar, okay, that's always good stuff, okay, for you to think about. Request to send personal info. No account that is reputable is going to ask you to send your Social Security number through an email. Okay, think through that before you do it. All right, that's usually phishing. The sender email address doesn't match with the company that it's coming from. I like this one. It's talking about Amazon again, okay? And this time, this email address comes from Amazon, but except the 0 at the end or the O at the end, it's a 0. Well, that's a good red flag, okay? And then maybe particularly an email that you definitely was not expecting. So what can you do and what can't you do? Well, number one, if you think it's a phishing email, don't click on it. I remember several years ago when phishing really started to blossom. I used to get packages all the time at the place that I worked for UPS. And I had, at this particular moment, I had several packages that were being shipped to me. And I got this email through, UPS shipment, click here to track. Yeah, I'm going to track it. Let's see where it's at. And before I knew it, I'd already clicked that link. Be careful what you click on, okay? Things we don't want to do. Don't want to click on any links. We don't want to click on any attachments that they send. And we definitely don't want to send any personal information. Things that we can do, we can verify, right? We can verify what's going on. We can contact that person directly if we don't know where that's from, okay? We also can report it to your IT department or to the email or phone provider. So again, for me, as far as the IT department, I absolutely love when my users send me an email. Jason, does this look legit? I love when they do that. That doesn't bother me. Why? Because I go through this list and go, hey, what email address is that coming from? That looks suspicious, so I think we might not do anything with that, okay? And then, not only do they report it to me, I usually send it back with that very last thing. Just delete it, okay? So you're not infected by getting a phishing email, okay? You need to hear that. You're not infected. It's not like somebody attacked your email account. They're phishing. They're throwing a bunch of emails out all over the place. Yes, it might land in your inbox. Just delete it. Move on, okay? Don't think too long about it, all right? Phishing. All right, so while we're talking about phishing, I have two examples up here. One of them I'm going to work through with you. The other one I want you to work through by yourself. Are you with me? All right, so the first one, I'm going to skip through two of them, or the first one I want you to do. This one, okay, I got the other day. Now let's kind of talk through some of the things that we can do. So we want to verify, number one, okay? First of all, it's got the Microsoft account notice, and it looks like the Microsoft logo. Looks pretty legit, doesn't it? I kind of feel like it does. That's the little Windows 11, I think, logo. All right, so that's pretty cool. All right, so it's telling me that I need to update access required, and it gives me a notice. Okay, seems legit enough. All right, so I start looking at the email. Now, this is why I wanted to use this one first, because that email is really small. You might not be able to see it. But here's where it comes from, and I'll read it to you. It comes from NETORG 48199.onmicrosoft.com. If you don't know that email address, okay, let that be the first flag for you about phishing. All right? Now, those of us in the IT world, we know that that's an actual domain, .onmicrosoft.com. That's true. Okay, that is one. All right? But the key thing about that particular email is right before that, it says Ariel at KingSironnetworks.com via. Anytime you see this via thing, right, usually that's not a pretty legitimate email, okay? So number one, red flag. Number two, all right, so it's got helicopter. That's one of my usernames that I do use, okay? But that's with my personal account, not my work account. So if I could look down through here, your current password for helicopter at summersvillewv.org. I do not have that email address. Red flag number two, okay? So I don't have that account. I know that for a fact. Something I'm not going to deal with, okay? And then I love how it says, hey, to keep using your current password, click here, use current password. Now, obviously, this is where the phishing comes in. See, they want you to click that link. It's going to take you to somewhere. I almost bet money it's going to make you, or it's going to ask you, and once you click that link, it's going to come up with another window that says, enter your current password to keep your current password current. Yeah, bad idea, right? Yeah, I don't want to ever put my password into something that I don't know that it's not there. And then there's some other stuff down there. It's even got a confidentiality notice. Love it, okay? Seems legit, but we've already found 3 red flags with that, okay? All right, the next one, I want you to do your own, okay? So it's a little bit bigger text. You're able to read it a little bit. And I want to ask some questions. So just for further background, Nicholas Community Action Partnership, a place that I work, my boss there, her name is Angela Williams, all right? I've asked her permission to use this email. So it's a legitimate person. She is the executive director of that company, and she does email me and her email a lot, okay? So that part you got. So I want you to use what we just talked about, the do's and don'ts, and I want you to take a look at this example, all right? When you see a red flag, tell me. All right, email address. So at the top it says it's coming from Angela Williams. So anybody can put any name up there, all right? You go, Jason, how do they know her exact spelling of her name? Well, that's a great question, but ncapwv.org, if you go to our website, our executive director is listed there with her full name. And by the way, her email address, okay? All right, so it's coming from Angela Williams. The email address, though, is info86991@gmail.com. Is Gmail more of a personal email? It is. It can be sometimes used for business, but you know what? As an IT person, when someone asks me that question, I go, don't use gmail.com, especially for business. Okay, that's where you need your own domain, your own email account. Okay? What other red flags do you see?
It's asking you to take action.
Okay? Yeah, it's asking me urgent, right? It's saying, hey, if you have time, I have a request. Okay? Yeah, I'm in a conference meeting right now, and I only have access to mail. Well, right there. They only have access to mail. What else would they have access to normally? Yeah, I could probably text them, right? Do I text my executive director, my boss at one of the... Absolutely, we text all the time, okay? So the first thing I would do is go, well, number one, if I can't see any other red flags, let me just text her. What do you need? Right? Okay, what else? Anything else you see? What do you think they're after? How about that? What are they after? Because it just says there's no links, right? There's no click here, change your password. There's no click here, send money. What are they after? They are after an active and current email address. Okay? So when you were to reply to this, you're actually replying it to that gmail.com. They're after that email address. They have sent this. You know how many times I got this email forwarded to me? I bet I got like 20 of them, okay? Because they hit everybody at Nicholas Community Action Partnership, okay? It's fantastic. And then, love them there because guess what? We've did some training. So what do? Hey, we're reporting this to Jason. Hey, this looks suspicious. Yes, it is. Thank you very much, okay? And then at an IT level, guess what? I can block that particular email address from sending any more. I could do that. Or some other things that we can do. So that's important. So when you think about email, don't just automatically click. The story I heard this morning as I was walking in here was, yep, I didn't realize what was happening and I just went through and just started clicking. Well, we've probably all done that. But be careful. Be careful in how fast you click and then what you click through. So how do we stay safe online? We got some strong passwords. We've got MFA. We've got some phishing. And then the last thing, we'll kind of go through this pretty quickly because this one is kind of a fast one, but it's update your software. So IT professionals usually ride the fence on this. Some IT guys I talk to say they don't want updates. Some IT guys I talk to say they do want updates. I would be on the fence of we need them. And here's why. Anytime a company puts out an update for your software, it usually has security fixes in it. And how do they find those security fixes? Because threat actors have already exploited that fix, okay? So the reason we want to update software is if a bad guy, John Smith, has found the hole in whatever software that you have, that security fix is going to close that hole. So we want them. Could it break some of the things that we already have in place as an IT? It could. It is possible. But here's what I would say. I would rather have it break things that are good than for me to leave holes that threat actors can get in. All right? So anytime your phone, your computer, any of those things, man, it starts asking for updates, do it. Don't click remind me later. I'm not going to make you raise your hand if you've done that, okay? And of course, there's a way that you can click automatic updates also, okay? Where do you find them? There's different notifications in different places, and I'm not going to go into all those places. But in the black is Apple products. If you go to Apple products right there, a lot of us have that. If you go to settings, general, then hit software update, that's where you'll see a list, all right? So make sure you're doing those updates. Those are important. If you haven't noticed, Apple did a whole refresh in September. New iPhones came out, a new iOS came out, right? There's been a lot of updates lately. There always is, okay? Because they put the first one out, guess what? Some threat actor finds the hole and they go, oh, let's fix that, and they come out with another one. So make sure that you're doing those updates frequently, okay? All right, so we went over 4 ways for us to stay safe. Strong passwords, MFA, phishing, and updates. Here's some other ways for us to get involved, and I want to take just a small amount of time. We're getting close to the end, and I want to give you some time for some questions, but I want to touch on a couple of these. So we know in the business world, we've got to stay safe because, well, if threat actors were to get into our business, it could be damaging. That's true, okay? So one way you can get involved is at work. You can do a couple of those things. I highlighted one thing down here. If you have an IT department, or if you want to go through this yourself, I think it's a great idea. A phishing simulation, meaning I'm going to send out a phishing email that's not a real phishing email, right? But it's a phishing to fish to see if people are going to click. But it really doesn't do anything, okay? It just tells me that they clicked. That's a great way to start to train your employees. That's a fantastic way, okay? We definitely have done that. I have a couple different phishing campaigns that we have set up, and it's unique because some people will go, it'll never get me, but man, sometimes they just click through, okay? So that's a great way, that phishing simulation. Again, that's at work. The other place I want to hammer on is home, and I just want to talk about this for a second. So basically everything we've talked about today has been work stuff, has been things that maybe you do on your laptop. Let's make a transition here real quick, okay? Let's talk about home. Home, you probably have fast speed internet, okay? We are in West Virginia, so there are places that doesn't have high speed internet yet, or whatever the case may be. But most of us do, and most of us have all of that stuff at home. Most of us have computers at home. You carry around a computer in your pocket called a cell phone, okay? We all use those type of things. Well, all the stuff we're talking about can apply to home. And I find it very interesting that we deal with all of these things at the workforce, but when we get home, it's like we forget about it. I've been a youth pastor for many years, okay? 11 if you want to think about it, 12. But in those youth pastor years, I dealt with a lot of teens. And I watched this go through families many times. And I think as parents or at home people, if you have some younger folks, you've got to be able to talk to them about technology. You can't keep it from them, can you? You're not going to keep it from them because our world's full of tech and we've got to deal with it. So the best way for us to deal with those young minds is to plain talk to them about it. If we choose to be silent, where are they going to learn from it? Friends, internet, TV, these are all things I probably don't want my son to learn about technology from. I want to talk to him about it. I know that seems scary, and I know you're like, man, I don't know if I have all the answers. You don't have to have. Just open those lines of communication and talk to them about it. Tell them, hey, look, never give personal information out. You know? Well, you go, well, they don't have a cell phone, they just have an iPad. Well, it's still connected to the internet, okay? They still can do things. What if they have a social media account? How they deal with that? I think we put some young minds on social media far too early, don't we? Certainly do. So I just want to touch on that. Again, that's a whole nother lunch and learn we could talk about on how to keep kids safe online. But you know what? These 4 things can help them, okay? But you've got to help it, man. You've got to set the precedents, whether that's at home and even at work. And in several other ways. Even in our community, we can do some things, and then several things online. One of the ways we can continue to build that strong cybersecurity culture, you know, we can do some training, we can identify some of those areas, we can stay current. Remember, what we're talking about today isn't always going to stay current. In fact, I would say in 2 to 3 years, probably everything we talked about today is probably going to be obsolete. We talk about something else, okay? Technology is changing quite frequently. There's just some additional resources, and what I can do is I can post some of these links, maybe through social media or even through an email, and give some more of this stuff out. But CISA, okay, is a great place for you to find resources on how to stay safe online. This entire presentation came straight from them. I gave some of those examples, and some of the things I talked about is a little bit different, but it's coming from them. They have a whole toolkit of several things they can do. Again, CISA, CISA.gov is that website. That's a great place to start. And then along with the NCA, that staysafeonline.org. All right, I know that was a lot, and I know that we talked about a lot, and we may have gotten some confusion. But what I'd like to do is kind of end our lunch and learn with some questions. Maybe it's an expectation that you had that you thought I was going to talk about today, and I didn't talk about it, okay? But if you have some questions, I just want to open that up. Maybe we can answer them. Maybe we can't. I don't have all the answers either. Maybe we got to go find those answers. So how about some questions? Any?
I have one.
Okay.
If you have an app that's been compromised and you
Okay.
have to go in and change it, to change your password, and you go in not through an email or anything, you just go in through your regular app and change your password, do you have to, should you shut that whole account down?
So the straight answer was it would depend. I would think if it's been compromised, I do think you change your password as quick as you can. And then I think you try to find MFA. If you can turn that on, people can't fake MFA, multi-factor authentication. And the reason they can't fake that, right, is that's your cell phone. If it's a code to your cell phone, they would have to have that code, and it's darn near impossible to get that cell phone on that same number. So if you can do those things, then I would say no. If you can't, I would say maybe. And maybe look at just Xing that account and starting a new one. Also depends on how important that account is. You know, if it's just a social media account, well, those can be important too. Yeah, depends on how important that is. Anything else? Let me say this, okay? You have my contact information in those cups. If there is something that you need to ask a question about, I'm always happy to talk cybersecurity. I'm happy to talk anything about tech. I love those things. That's what keeps me going, among other things. But I like to deal with those things. If it becomes something that comes intensive, then I can definitely point you to some help. If you're sitting there thinking, man, Jason, you're talking about a lot about IT departments. I don't have an IT department. I got 3 employees. Well, okay, let's talk, because that's something we can deal with, okay? Some of you have your own business, and I have dealt with you directly, okay? So some of you exactly know what's going on. But that's the truth about it, is we want to help, and we want to help beefing up that cybersecurity, because we want that. By the way, it can be regional too. So certain threat actors can happen regional, and it can spread regionally. So we got to be careful of that. Even in a little small town of Summersville, we don't have very many people here. We got a lot of people working here, but we're still online just like any other city. So we have to be careful of that. Okay? Well, if there's no other questions, I appreciate your attentiveness. I know I did a lot of talking. Hopefully you learned a little something. Maybe you can take something away. If anything, you got a good lunch, huh? That was good. Thank you to Dinner Time. Appreciate that. And to Seneca again for our venue. So, all right. Very cool. If there's no other thing else, then you are dismissed.